Now, it's been quite some time since I sat back and actually did a tutorial like this. You guys, I don't even think I've sat in front of the computer and the camera at the same time and shot a video in a while, right? And I know you guys kind of missed that, but we're going to do a side-by-side quick tutorial. And what I want to talk about today is something that came on Peter McKinnon's questionnaire that he asked. He pretty much told people to ask him a question, which is standard for a lot of YouTubers to do. I don't do it because you guys don't ask me a lot of questions. Leave them in the comment section, please. Thank you. But one lady came into the questionnaire and said, do we need to edit our pictures? And the short answer is yes. Like, edit your pictures. You're going to put a black and white filter on it just like this. Why don't you make sure that it's not grayscale and make it black and white? Now, based off what this picture already is, it's already been cropped at the top and cropped at the bottom, which means it's just a fashion photo. They're just trying to show off like the shirt and the shorts and stuff like that. It is a weird cropping, but we're not even going to worry about the cropping. But when we look at this picture, it's extremely flat, and that flat image is just not really all that appealing to the eye. People look at that and say, well, there could be more to it. It's an average photo in grayscale. People will say black and white, but they just know that it's something about that is not popping out. So I'm gonna show you guys how to make this pop. All right, so the first thing we need to do is just make a duplicate copy of this in Photoshop. And before I even continue going, I know a lot of people don't use Photoshop to edit photos. They use Lightroom, and I think that's okay. I don't really mind using Lightroom or Photoshop, but I like Photoshop more because you can get in a little bit more deeper. I'm gonna show you guys something at the end of this so you guys can have that quick tip going on for yourself. But when we make this duplicate here, we want to make sure that that's, you know, off this background. So we got layer 1, and I want to put a levels layer on top of it. Okay, now this levels layer is everything you need to turn this grayscale into like a black and white, right? We're looking at this, and we want to manipulate the highlights and midtones. We want to make the whites white and the darks dark. Okay, so I'm going to take the highlights, which is the whites, and I'm going to move this in as much as possible, like maybe right here. Okay, and as you can see, that just brighten up the photo. Now this is a JPEG, so it's kind of like doing its own little thing just a little bit. But if I take the midtones, this middle slider right here, and we move it in slightly this way, we get more of that blacks being black, whites being white. So I can bring this in just a little bit more, just a tad bit, and we get something a little bit like this. Now, you might not notice the difference like I noticed the difference, but there's a contrast going on here. So if I turned off group 1, as you can see, we're getting more of an actual image here that's being able to be more of like a fashion photo that we're going for. This reminds me of like H&M and Forever 21, right? Like they have that black and white kind of like picture that's a whole lot of like contrast on it. It looks really good, right? So this is how you fix that out. Now, when I do stuff like this, I like to turn the group into like edit. So this is edit 1. All right, we'll say contrast. So if I hit Command Option Shift and E, this is going to present me with a composite shot. Now this composite shot can be used to do things like high frequency separations and other things like, you know, that you notice that can be kind of manipulated out. This is why I like Photoshop. I mean, you can do this stuff in Lightroom, but it's just not as powerful as Photoshop. Like this is what Photoshop is good for. Now I've noticed some things on this photo that you guys probably can't notice, or maybe you did, but like her veins are showing. Like you got a vein down here that's showing. That looks kind of crazy. You have another vein like right here that's showing, and then you got this whole left leg that look like cellulite. Okay, like we have things that we got to fix up on this photo. So the way I like to do this is I just put it in a high frequency separation, and I just go from there with the textures. So I'm just gonna go ahead and hit Command J, and I'm gonna make this layer a blur layer. I'm gonna hit Command J on the blur layer, and I'm gonna make this layer a high pass. And then we can just delete this copy or this composite shot that I made because we really don't need it. So I'm gonna take the blur layer and I'm gonna turn off the high pass, and I want to go into filter, blur, Gaussian blur. The trick here is we want to make sure that we can still see the lines, but we can't see like the legs, like the stuff that we're trying to fix. So I'm thinking maybe this 40 looks good, but if I go to like maybe 42, that'd be a little bit stronger, and then we'll just hit OK. Now with this high pass filter, I'm just going to turn this back on, and I want to put this high pass filter on a linear light. But you know what? I'm going to wait for that. Actually, I want to show you guys by step what's happening. So we're going to go into image, apply image, and then I want to take this layer where it says layer. I want to put that on a blur. And then if your blending isn't like, I don't know, it might be in like multiply or something like that. It might look like this for you guys, but for me, my blending is on subtract, and it should be at a scale of 2 and an offset of 128 with a high opacity of 100%. If you hit OK, this is what you would get, right? So you go into the blending options and you put that on a linear light, and then you get something a little bit like this. So we're gonna put both of these into one group, and we're gonna call this frequency sep. Now if I turn off the frequency sep and we look at just the original picture, like there's nothing different, right? Like we can see that this is the same picture, except one of them is ready to be frequency separated. If we toggle these on and off, this is what we should get, which is amazing in its own, because now we can just kind of manipulate that stuff out and we get exactly what the picture is gonna look like going forward, right? So I'm gonna go to the high pass. I'm gonna take the clone stamp tool and zoom in. I want to mess with these legs because, like I said, I can see a lot of her veins. If I hold down Alt Option and click with this clone stamp tool, I can make some lines that are going to get rid of majority of the lines that's here. We don't want to see some of this stuff. It's just going to take the texture out of it just a little bit, but it's applying good texture to it as well. So we can continue to move this out. As a matter of fact, I might even just be able to just click around instead of making straight lines and all that stuff. We don't want to disrupt any like shadowing or anything like that, but we don't want this to be too out the way. Now look at that leg. Look how smooth this leg looks actually. Okay, so like that's the basis of what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that this leg is smooth. We don't want to take out too much details because we can do that with the blur, but right now we want to do something a little bit like that. So I'm just gonna mess around with these arms real quick, just going to the highlights and then kind of putting it in, you know, where that line, where that fault is at, because we don't want to see that. Okay, so now that we have that done, I just want to show you guys a before and after what just happened here. So I'm going to turn off the frequency sep and then I'm going to turn it back on. And as you guys can see, much smoother skin, much more of like a stronger leg or whatnot, and that's what we really want about this stuff. So I'm gonna go back in with the blur and I'm gonna take the lasso tool and I just want to blur out some of these darker lines and stuff like that, stuff that I really couldn't fix with that. So I'm just gonna go through like this. On the blur, I'm going to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I think I'll put it at like maybe a 30. I think 32 is okay. And it's just gonna take care of some of that blotchiness or whatnot. I'll go through like that just to kind of fix it out. Now this is pretty much good. This is a thumbs up. We can stop here and we can just go ahead and export this out as a JPEG or a PNG or whatever you guys do, a DNG. You can go ahead and do what you need to do with this, put it out, get it printed. It's ready for that model to be like, yes, you know what I'm saying? But since this is more of a fashionable thing, what I want to do is turn this into a mock-up. Now, for the people who follow me, because I make mock-ups, I'm a graphic designer, I'm a YouTuber that does fashion design and stuff like that on this channel. If you guys want to see how I'm gonna mock this up, you can go ahead and do it. But for everybody else who just wanted to see how to edit this out in a quick way, I'm glad you saw it. If you learned something, go ahead and subscribe to me today. I do this all the time. But let's go ahead back into this and kind of mock this up real quick. So we're gonna go into a new layer, and I want to rename this as design. Then I'm gonna put this on a smart object and then hit Command J, and we're gonna take the copy and we're gonna put that up under the regular design, and we're gonna turn off the design. You guys know exactly what I do with this. All right, so we're gonna take a new layer and we're gonna hit Command Option Shift and E, and we're gonna rename this as shadows. And then with this shadow layer, we're gonna clip this to the design. So we're gonna make this a clipping mask and put it right there. All right, so in design, I'm just gonna go ahead and double click on it. We're gonna hit OK. I want to draw out some guides real quick. You know I do this all the time. And I want to put in like maybe a mini graphic in here. Something like, I don't know, this is where your design goes. So I'm just going to do something a little bit like this. Just save that out. And then we'll go back into this picture that we created, right? Now, we don't see anything because I put the shadow layers on this clipping mask over the design. But if I turn this into a multiply, we get everything we need out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command T, scale this down, and then put it like maybe right here. So this looks pretty good, but there's a slight problem going on. If I go back in and I make this maybe, I don't know, a grayscale, more of a gray instead of like a black, something a little bit like this, we see more of the textures and stuff like that is moving more along with the like dark and blacks and stuff like that. Also, I want to just go ahead, just in case there's somebody who wants to use this template, because I'm gonna put this on Patreon. So you guys, if you want this one, you can download it off of Patreon. This is going with the 365. So anybody who wants an everyday mock-up is gonna be right there on Patreon, so you can pick it up. I'm gonna go ahead and put this on a saturation. I'm gonna just desaturate it so you guys know, like, this is a black and white no matter what. The image is black and white. You're gonna get it on a black and white. You're gonna put your design on a black and white. All right, so all I need to do is just take the pen tool, go around this, and then put a layer mask on top of it. So I'm gonna take the pen tool and just go from there. The only thing that we need to worry about is that the shirt design needs to move with the shadows, right? Because the shadows are gonna make it look real. So we're just gonna move this like this, come around. We're gonna make sure that it goes inside of the shirt and not on the outside of the shirt. So we're gonna actually move this over here like this. Now hit Control, right click, however you guys do it, make a selection, and then I'll leave this at 1/10 of a pixel on a feather radius and hit OK. So with that, I'm just going to go ahead and put a layer mask on top of it and unlink the layer mask, and we get a little bit something a little bit like this. Now there's just one more thing, and this is just extra for me because I like to do this, right? I like to just go in with a curves adjustment, bring down the curves adjustment, and then hit Command I. And I'm going to take the brush tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and brush in some of those shadows, right? So like here, and here. As you can see, there's a lot of them. I know this doesn't look good right now because everything is on a high opacity and stuff like that. As I go through and I brush in these shadows, you guys start to see some differences. So if I drop down the opacity to like maybe, I don't know, 35, we'll get something a little bit like this. And I think this is cool because that's just adding more of that shadow layer to the actual design. So actually I could just bring this back on top of the shadows, and that'll be okay as well. So we got everything here, and I can just put all of this into one layer, and we'll call this design. And then I'll put everything into one layer, and we'll call this the mock-up. And like I said, if you guys want this, this is on Patreon right now, so you guys can go ahead and pick it up. Click the link below. All right, click the link below. It'll be there. It's for the 365 Loyal account, so you guys, it's 25 bucks. You get every day something new. All right, something new every day, I promise you. And I'm doing that more. And as you guys know, this goes along with the speed art designs that I'm doing on my channel as well. So all the speed art designs go on the channel. They're going right there. And then the designs that I just made today is going in there as well. So you guys can get that. But with that being said, I hope you guys love this quick tip. I hope you guys got some great fashion photos. And I hope you guys can create some better mock-ups just using this tutorial. Go ahead and subscribe if you're not subscribed to me. But with that being said, you guys have to jet. So stay amazing. Stay creative. Above all else, stay awesome.